Hi, this is David. I'm with Heather at the Texas Worm Ranch. And
Hello.
we've ordered some worms from this company before. First time I've had the opportunity to actually come meet her and come out and pick them up myself. So she's going to give us, kind of show us around what they do here at the Texas Worm Farm. And so we'll check it out.
All right, come this way.
Walk this way. There's a song like that, isn't there?
Oh, yes. Good.
Wow.
And yeah,
Lots going on.
Our primary business is not worms. It is very high quality, microbial, dense, and diverse worm castings.
Awesome.
So that is our goal is to produce the best worm castings, vermicompost on the planet. And so we, maintain quality controls to make that happen. We, have a pretty specific blend of our compost and pre-composted materials that we put the worms in. Our management is, always the same process. And then we have a cycle time for harvesting so that we maintain that same quality week after week. So that's what we try to accomplish.
So your main product is the vermicompost,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that's interesting. I'm actually a permaculturalist, so
Okay.
I know a little bit about that. So who are your main clients? Who typically is buying like the compost from you?
So we have some very knowledgeable customers who understand the soil food web and microbiology. And so that's who we're really targeting. And so we produce for them. They're going to test it under the microscope. So we know we have to be on our game.
That's awesome.
So we make our product for them. And then the lucky backyard gardeners who buy from us also think it's just magic, but it's really science. And so they have the benefit of that microbiology helping them grow productive organic gardens as well.
That's amazing.
So
I had just bought a microscope through a deal I got through Matt Powers. I don't know if you know who Matt Powers is, permaculture.
Yes.
I'm in 2 of his classes. But
okay.
So anyway, I like to look at stuff under the microscope and see what I can learn from it.
It's kind of like a treasure hunt, scavenger hunt. You're always hoping to see what you want to see, and then sometimes you'll see something interesting like a microarthropod or something like that gets pretty fun as well.
Very cool.
So I enjoy that.
So can you show us the vermicompost?
Yeah, one moment. And
see what that looks like?
Yeah. All right, so we have some that was just harvested right here.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, so I always do a look, feel, and smell test. Okay, so we want our color to be a dark cocoa brown. We don't want it to be light in color. We don't want it to be dark black. And so that tells us that things have been aerobic, that there's high humic acid material, fulvic acid, and it's going to be high in carbon and humus and fertility. The second thing that we like to see is that it's alive, as you can see. We have insects and arthropods in here, and their poop, which is called frass, is also very good for our soil health and our plant health. So that's not a bad thing. So we do the field test, and the field test I call my chocolate muffin test. Okay, we want this material to stick together, but also to be able to crumble apart like a good chocolate muffin. Okay, we wouldn't want it to be so tight together that we could bounce it on the cement and it would hold together, and we wouldn't want it to just be able to sift through our fingers.
So does that have to do with the moisture content that's maintained?
You know, moisture content and aerobic. Uh, we want it to be aerobic,
Oxygenated?
oxygenated. We don't want it to be anaerobic.
Right.
So if it was sticking together and you couldn't crumble it away, then the chances are it would be anaerobic. So when we looked under the microscope, we would see ciliates, which are an anaerobic indicator. We never want to see that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the next test is the smell test, and we want it to smell like the forest floor. We don't want any ammonia or off-putting odors.
Smells good.
Yeah. So should just have that earthy forest floor odor, and it passes that.
That's
and
awesome.
So I usually have a pretty good indication what I'm going to see under the microscope in terms of density and diversity of organisms, humic acids and fulvic acids, and I can pretty much tell you I shouldn't see any anaerobic indicators because it's passed my look, feel, and smell test.
Okay. So any of the flagellates that you see in the soil, that means it's had too much water?
Well, so there are three major protozoa that we look at under the microscope. There are amoebas and flagellates, and they're aerobic indicators. Ciliates are the anaerobic indicator. They are not a bad organism per se, but they tell you that there's anaerobic bacteria, and it's their job to eat and clean up anaerobic bacteria. It's the anaerobic bacteria that could be pathogens that might either be plant pathogens and or human pathogens. So bacteria are so small on the microscope that we probably can't tell what they are.
They look like black dots in mine,
they
even
look
at
like little dots or rods.
Yeah.
But ciliates are big on the microscope slide, and they move really fast, so they're easy to see and tell that you have, and so they're an easy indicator that, things are not quite right. So
very cool. Interesting. That's awesome. So this is a neat setup you've got here.
Yeah, so like I said, we kind of have a cycle time where we kind of do a look, feel, smell test to our bins before we harvest to make sure that they're going to pass that. And we also have them timed so that we'll have so many bins ready to harvest per week. We basically just pull our material together, and I don't have a bucket underneath here, so I'm not going to do this.
Sure.
But we would put the material here and turn on our motor, and the large material and worms go across and all the way to the bottom, and then the fine material comes down here, like the stuff that fell on the floor because I didn't have something underneath.
Yeah, sorry, I pulled the bucket out.
Yeah, well, that's okay. So that's kind of our process in a quick nutshell.
That's awesome. So I see your sign here on the wall. This is how folks can get in touch with you guys, right?
Yes.
Through your website?
Through our website. And email is our best way to give you good customer service. And our email is at txwormranch@gmail.com.
That's great. Do you guys ship, or do you pick up only?
We ship our castings. We are not currently shipping worms for two reasons. The first reason is we have so many orders. If we put this on our website, there's no way we could manage getting all the worms out. Number two, there's been a lot of disruption in the post office in the last 3 or 4 years, and we have lost faith in worms getting to people within that priority mail time and getting them to you alive. So those are kind of our reasons that we stopped shipping worms, but we are shipping castings, and so you can order those through our website, and we will ship those directly to you.
That is awesome. So for folks that don't know how to set up their own worm bins and create those, I noticed that you have these.
Yeah, so the urban worm bag is a really great system for home worm composters. And the thing I like about it most is that it's always going to be aerobic because the material in the urban worm bag is breathable, and so you can get oxygen in that system at all times. So that is having oxygen in your system and not letting it go anaerobic is really important to making good vermicompost.
That's wonderful. Very handy. Thank you. So that's gonna be great for backyard gardeners and
Yes.
home composters.
Yes. Now in Texas, I highly recommend keeping it in indoor temperature controlled environments. The worms prefer 32 to 85 degrees. Well, they don't prefer. That's where they're going to stay alive. They prefer 60 to 70 degrees. But if you get over or under those temperature extremes, your worms are going to die. Also in Texas, we have fire ants, which love something just sitting there, soil just sitting there. And apparently everything thinks worms are delicious. So anything from mice to rats to raccoons, even your dog, your chickens. If you're a permaculturist and you have, a lot of animals and/or wildlife, they may find your worms quite tasty.
Yeah, so you got to protect them for sure.
Yes.
All right. Well, Heather, thank you. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure, David.
And we'll let everybody know about where to find you guys and how to get their worm castings or worms should they need them. I really enjoyed doing the interview with Heather at Texas Worm Farm and learned quite a bit from her about vermiculture, compost, and raising worms for yourselves on your own farm or for your own home garden. In the past, one of the things that we've done, a mistake we've made here in North Texas, is that keeping them too hot. So by keeping them on our patio or in the barn or in the garage, the worms simply can't survive in temperatures below about 60, 65 or above temperatures that are much above 80 to 85. So that 60 to 80 degree zone is really ideal for them. There are a lot of YouTube channels out there that show you how to make worm bins and vermicompost in bathtubs and water troughs. I'm assuming that maybe a lot of those folks are in climates where they have a temperate climate that's in that temperature zone, but for us, that's one of the mistakes that we've made, is you simply can't keep them in that temperature zone where they need to be so that they will survive. So this time we are going to keep them in the house. We actually have one of the worm bins, this blue worm bin, from the last time we had the worms for vermicompost. And we also have this one that we're going to use that we have a little spigot put on the end of it. So if there's any fluid or liquid that we can save out of the compost, we'll do that for compost tea. This bin has holes in the sides and bottom for ventilation, and luckily I found that one bin will fit inside another, so we can keep it like that. So this one will catch any liquid that comes through. This one will have the air holes all the way around, so that lid, it just sits on the handles and fits in there perfectly. It just kind of got lucky with what I had on hand. So one of the other things I was talking to Heather about was, in the past we've had trouble with keeping them in the house. You'd end up with gnats or fruit flies or stuff like that, which you just don't want in your house. It's just kind of a nuisance. So one of the things that she suggested was only feeding them, I believe she said, half a cup a week, and you can add a granulated form of BT or the mosquito bits. So because the fruit flies, mosquitoes, they all develop in the same way in that moist environment, the mosquito bits or granulated BT will prevent that from happening in your bin. So just make sure those are Omni approved and organic. So for me, the next thing is, I've got this all washed, cleaned up and ready to go. Next thing I'm going to do is, we have our coconut coir medium. I'm going to put these in the wheelbarrow and get this soaking in water, and then we'll get the worms and everybody put together. So I've added 2 of those coconut coir blocks to this mix and added water to it and let it absorb the water until everything is damp, but not, probably a little bit, still some spots seem to have a little bit too much moisture. Just going to let it sit and absorb as much of the water out of here as it can. I'm stirring it up a little bit, and just don't want it sopping wet. Should not be able to squeeze water out, so it's still absorbing some water. I'm going to leave it to finish soaking that up. So otherwise it's looking pretty good. This coconut coir that I got came in these little blocks, in these little packages, and there were 5 of them in here. And this package is pretty handy. The fact that they're divided into these little blocks means that you could separate it or use just however much you need. It's not one big massive block. But can't remember exactly where we got it, but if you can see that, it's organic coconut bliss, and this is 1.4 pounds in 5 pieces. And it looks like the company name is, can't even say it upside down, Plantonics, Natural Growing Solutions. So sounds like the right product for us. So after letting this sit for a while, there's still a little bit more moisture in this than I would like. So I'm going to add some of our shredded paper in here, and that will absorb any of the excess water. So we can mix that in. It's a good source of carbon, and it's just paper that's been shredded. We don't have any plastic or anything else that's in there. So I'm going to add the coconut coir to this and get it mixed up. All right, the next step is to actually add the worms. So we have our pound of worms from Texas Worm Branch, and I've got them in this box covered with some newspaper. I don't know if that light you can see in there, but that's a lot of worms. There are a lot in there. So I'm going to set the paper aside for right now. But yeah, lots of nice, happy composting worms. So I'm simply going to turn the box upside down over this medium that we put in, and there they go. They are all in there. Don't have to, but I'm going to spread them out just so it's nice and level. And they're kind of bouncing around, hopping around, happy little guys. So they're going to have to find where their favorite place is. Last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and feed them. And as I mentioned, one of the mistakes we made in the past was probably overfeeding them. And there's some things they don't particularly like. They will eat citrus, but it's going to be last on their list. So I'm going to leave orange peels and stuff out. They do like bananas and greens, so take out the little plastic off the organic bananas. Lay this in. Maybe just a couple little sprigs of asparagus stems. A couple of small pieces of sweet potato.
What is that?
And we're going to let them. We're going to let them. The bee's not going to hurt you. We're going to let them go to town on that. So I saved this paper that was in the box. So I'm going to add this back over just to give them some shelter because the sun's bright here. And they are already going down into the soil trying to avoid the sunlight. So we're going to just cover these guys up, and I may even put a little bit more of that paper mulch over the top of that. And there we have it. We have our worm bin all set up and ready to go. So I just need to put the lid on, and then once a week we will feed it, and then we'll begin to get our composted worm castings from this and be able to make some nice compost tea as well.
Did you make that?
We did make that.